Welcome back to another Fantasy Puck video. It's Chris, and today we've got some sell high players for you. There are a lot of players on this list. I do try to give my best trade recommendations. Now, keep in mind, these are just players that I suggest that you try and buy low on. Some of you might agree with, some of you might not agree with. That's completely fine, up to you. Just wanted to give you guys some suggestions. It's also really going to depend on who you're trading with and how they value each individual player. So keep that in mind as well. I do have some pretty high-end players on this list that, again, managers might want to just hold on to and see if they get out of that slump. That's completely understandable. It really depends on who you're trying to trade with. I'm a big advocate of just trying to get as much as you can. So I'm therefore asking for some high-end players back. But that being said, guys, we got a ton of great sell highs in this video. Let's get right into it. Up first, we have Sam Reinhart of the Florida Panthers. He is at an all-time high in value right now. He's got 25 points in 18 games. He's playing a ton of minutes right now in Florida, over 21 minutes average time on ice. But the big indicator that Reinhart is currently overperforming is his shooting percentage. He's currently at around 25%, and his career sits in between 14 and 15% at 14.5%. So this could honestly be another 80-point season out of Reinhart. We've seen it in the past, especially like 2 years ago where he had over 80 points. Last year, he was around that 60-65 mark. But I think, given the fact that Reinhart's had such a hot start, you're able to capitalize on this right now and get an elite player in return for him. Think about where you drafted Reinhart in the course of your draft. It was probably later than like the 4th or 5th round. If you got him anywhere before that, I think that would have been a reach. But if you got him in like say the 4th, 5th round or beyond that even, you're getting a ton of return on investment. I would target high-end players that seem to be struggling right now. Kirill Kaprizov is a great example. Rasmus Dahlin as well. He isn't necessarily struggling, for example, but not up to the standard of what you expect out of Dahlin's point production. And then Andrei Vasilevsky, he is skating right now. I think there's a chance that you could still get him if you need some goaltender help. And because Reinhardt's value is so high right now, and he does have a history of being a good player, I would just much rather invest into somebody that I know is an elite player, like Kaprizov, like Dahlin, like Vasilevsky. Mark Stone of the Vegas Golden Knights, he is at his peak of value right now with 18 points in his last 19 games. The reason why I think you should be selling high on Stone right now is because he's a point-a-game player and he's typically a low peripherals player. His shots per 60 isn't great to begin with, and it's even down this year from 8.1 to 6, which is not good when it comes to a low-volume shooter like Stone to begin with. He is also a big injury risk, in my opinion. He's played less than 45 games played in the past 2 seasons, and to me, he just doesn't really add a ton of value outside of the assist category. He does rack up a couple power play points here and there, but for me, it's just not enough to value a guy like Stone based off of where he's playing right now, so I want to sell high on him while he still has a ton of value and he's still healthy. I personally think you should target guys like Matt Boldy, for example, who's going to get you a ton of more goals, somebody that's just struggling to put the puck in the back of the net right now, but as we've seen based off his career totals, he should be a much better scorer than what he's showing right now. Mort Seider's going to get you a ton of peripherals. Hellebuyck might be a little bit too overzealous, but I think with Stone being a point-a-game player right now and Helly's overall save percentage being under 900 as it stands currently, I think you could take a shot and try and get a guy like Connor Hellebuyck. Up next, we have Frank Vatrano, 17 points in 18 games. He's got great peripherals on top of that as well. His shot volume is actually very, very good this year, but he is shooting at 19.4% when he is a career 11% shooter in that 10.5 range. Still seeing a lot of time on ice from him over the 18-minute mark for Vatrano, as he is consistently seeing top 6 minutes. I would personally move him now before he starts to decline, especially from a goal scoring standpoint. He's never had more than 41 points in a season. It looks like he's going to break that this year and handily, like he could be around the 50-60 point mark, but that's completely fine with me. The fact that he's close to a point a game right now means his value is very, very high, and I want to target players that I know are elite players or give me similar production, but again, have more upside. Guys like Andrei Svechnikov, who is struggling early out of the gate here, but does give you similar peripherals. Miro Heiskanen's another good example. When it comes to shot and block volume, he's usually pretty solid in that sense, as well as he's starting to pick it up offensively. And then Vitek Vanacek is, again, somebody that I think is underperforming from a save percentage and goals against standpoint. The Devils have been injury plagued early on, especially missing Nico Hischier. That's a big part of their defensive structure as well. That guy plays a ton of minutes, so I would definitely be sure to target Vanacek as well if you need a goalie. Speaking of goalies, we have Jordan Binnington, currently at a .922 save percentage and a 2.49 goals against average. Where you're seeing a little bit of downside in terms of him overall as a player, in terms of his value, is in his record. He's 5-5-1 so far to start the season, but he is second in goals saved above expected amongst the goaltenders right now, behind Thatcher Demko. Most goaltending is bad right now, guys. Like, you have guys that are struggling but are winning games. Georgiev's a good example, and that's why he's on my trade target. Use his good stats as a leverage. The Blues will continue to be average or a middle tier team at best. They probably are going to try and sneak into a wild card spot this year. I think the team overall just had a really slow start and is kind of coming around as a whole. And I think, just given Binnington's history, he's had below a .902 save percentage in the past 2 seasons. I would start to target guys and see, can I move this guy and what can I get for him, given the fact that he is one of the better goalies in the National Hockey League currently when it comes to save percentage and goals against. So guys that I want to target: Timo Meier. Alex Pietrangelo has been great since he's come back, and then Alexander Georgiev as well. Again, if you're getting back another goalie, you want to make sure that it's another starter and you're not getting a guy that necessarily splits volume. I was looking at guys like Swayman and Ullmark, but again, probably a little bit too high in value, and I wouldn't want a goaltender back that's going to get half the volume that Binnington's getting right now. But I do want to move Binnington before we start to see his inevitable decline. I think Joel Hofer, again, might have a chance to take over the net this year. We kind of talked about that early in preseason, but I would definitely look to trade Binnington right now. Up next is Matt Duchene, 64% owned. Duchene is somebody that's very, very interesting, and we've seen it consecutively over the course of his career where he'll have one absolutely phenomenal year and then drop off the next year and then have another phenomenal year. He just keeps kind of trading back and forth the seasons. He's currently got 15 points in 16 games for the Stars so far, but the biggest concern with me with Duchene is that he's only playing around 16 minutes average time on ice. Normally, when you see a point-a-game player, you are looking at guys that play over 18 minutes a night and consistently in the top 6. That's not really the case for Duchene. He does get shuffled around in the middle 6 a lot, but I do think that you could find somebody with better peripherals. He could have another 55, 60 point season, or maybe even upwards of that, depending on his allocation with Dallas. But I just don't think what we're seeing so far with Duchene, based off of his ice time, is going to lead him to consistently score at this pace. Get good value while you can. Go out and get one of those top 6 guaranteed forwards. A guy like Jordan Kyrou is a good example for me. John Carlson is somebody that is struggling offensively and should honestly turn it around throughout the season. I definitely recommend trying to target him. And then Jacob Markstrom is, on a struggling Calgary Flames team, but they've honestly turned the corner as well. So you want to try and target guys that are going to benefit you more in the long term than Duchene is going to. This might be a little bit controversial, but I have Travis Sanheim to trade away as a player. He's 64% owned, and everybody was super hyped about him this year. Once he started to kind of break out, it looks like a big breakout year for Sanheim. He's playing a ton of minutes, close to 26 minutes a night, 16 points in 18 games. He's pair 1, he's power play 1, and these are all indicators that we kind of show and are like, this is a guy that you want on your team. This is a guy that you want to pick up. This is a guy that you want to roster on your team. I just don't think he's going to keep up this pace personally. I would rather upgrade while I can right now and get something of great value in return, if possible, for a guy like Sanheim, who honestly, like, as great of a start that Phillies had could just absolutely implode at any point. We saw it last year. They had a really good start, and then they went on a 11-game losing streak in the month of November. We're past that point. I get it at this point in the season. But again, I would much rather try and get somebody of exponentially higher value right now, given how hot Sanheim's been. And again, based off of what we're seeing out of him, I want to make sure I'm getting a player back with similar kind of attributes. Somebody that plays a ton of minutes, somebody that's pair 1, power play 1, or line 1, for example. And then again, you want to look at guys that are struggling. I think Mika Zibanejad is, again, I think Mika Zibanejad is a perfect target right now if you want to move a forward for a defenseman or vice versa. I'm definitely trying to target Zib in as many leagues as possible. Roman Josi might be a little bit overzealous, but he's kind of struggled offensively, and you're seeing similar peripherals in terms of like blocks that you've seen from Sanheim, for example. Obviously, the shot volume's not going to be there, but your trade-off in your argument for acquiring Josi is that Sanheim just is playing pretty much the exact same role on a different team and is producing at a higher rate. So there's your argument for trying to get Josi. Again, probably a little bit too much in terms of value, and some people might look at that and be like, you're crazy for offering that. But again, I want to get it as best as I can, and you can use any of the trade targets in this video, guys. Like, it doesn't have to be just Josi. You can look at guys like John Carlson, like I mentioned earlier. You can, and I'm going to mention, Miro Heiskanen as well too, Mort Seider. Like, these are all guys you can try and look at target. And then Alexander Georgiev, again, somebody that is getting a ton of win volume, but his numbers in terms of save percentage and goals against have been terrible, honestly, as of late. So you can look to target a guy like that as well for Sanheim. I would just try and get as much possible for a guy that's in a very, very high-end role right now. Up next, we have Quinton Byfield of the LA Kings. And again, another player that it's looking like a breakout year for Byfield. He's finally found his game in LA, playing line 1 and power play 2. We love being able to grab guys off of waivers and have them hold some type of value for a duration and then able to move them. Byfield's a perfect example of this. 15 points in 70 games, but the thing that kind of scares me away is he's got low peripherals and a really low average time on ice based off of his production. I think I would feel a lot safer with somebody that I know is playing a lot more in terms of a time on ice, getting a power play 1 role, and then trying to acquire somebody that, again, I would just feel safer in as a player in terms of their overall production not fluctuating. Somebody like Martin Necas, who has had a slower start to the season, I still think will get around that 70-point mark. He's a good target for me. Jake Sanderson might be a little bit high-end, trying to move Byfield for Sanderson, just given the fact that Sanderson's got 12 points on the year, but I think it's worth a shot. Like, you can definitely add another player to this deal if you need a D, but I think Sanderson is a great target right now. And then Stuart Skinner, where you look at a guy like that and you're like, well, when you're comparing value to Sanderson and Necas, Skinner is an absolute drop-off in terms of what we're seeing out of that. I do think that is a very, very good buy low. His value is bad right now. He's going to continue to see a ton of volume in Edmonton, and they just really don't have a choice in terms of their goaltending right now. If they go out and acquire a goaltender, it kind of hurts Skinner's value a little bit right now. But as the starter in Edmonton, he's going to continue to get a ton of volume, and he hasn't been that bad recently. And I think Edmonton will eventually figure it out. So again, I would just much rather get like good value. You could probably add another player to that trade as well if you're looking to get Skinner. And again, guys, it depends on who you're trading with and what their decision is and how they value players. So just keep that in mind. Again, don't come yelling at me in the comments just yet. And finally, guys, finishing up our sell high players list, we have Charlie Coyle. He's 22% owned. I wanted to give you guys a deeper option. He's got 15 points in 17 games. He doesn't have a great shot volume. He's pretty good in terms of hits and blocks right now, but it's still like not enough to get excited about. He's shooting at 22% when his career average is around 11%. On top of that, his last 50-plus point season was in 2016-2017. He is playing in a much higher role this year. We understand that out of Boston due to their lack of center depth, but if they go and acquire a center of any kind, Coyle probably gets bumped down to the third line. I would just try and, again, get a trade target that you know is going to play top 6 consistently. A guy like Jordan Kyrou, for example. If you need a ton of peripherals on your team and a defenseman, I would look at Justin Falk. I think that's a great trade if you're able to get Falk, for example. And then Ilya Samsonov, again, some of you might not like the Skinner acquisition, some of you might not like the Samsonov acquisition. They're both kind of turning it around right now, guys, and they're on really good teams that should continue to win a ton of games. I know Edmonton hasn't been great. I know the Leafs haven't been like a bona fide top 5 team in terms of their win volume, but I still think they're turning it around, and Samsonov will continue to see some volume going forward. That is going to do it for this video, guys. Again, thank you so much for watching. I try to give you guys some general trade targets. You can use any of the players that I listed for any of the trade targets. Just try and pick and choose what you're looking for in your team. Again, another good thing to consider when you're trading is, what does my team need the most? Again, I just try to give you guys some options, so please don't come at me too bad in the comment section, but hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I will see you in the next one. Have yourselves a fantastic rest of the day.